So cryptocurrencies, what's all the fuss? It's all over the news right now, right? And you hear people are getting rich by the minute buying cryptocurrencies. But aside from all the crazy speculative talks and news around getting rich and whatnot, there's also an underlying technology that's really important to talk about and to understand. Cryptocurrencies themselves are not the technology. They are run by something called the blockchain, which I will explain as we go through this talk. You're also going to notice this just hodl it meme. For people who don't know, hodl is simply a misspelling of hold. Somebody tweeted a while back to hold their crypto because it's going up in value. You mistyped hold, typed hodl, and now it's becoming a thing because the internet does that. So if you hear people saying just hodl it or hodl it, that means hold your crypto. That's all that means. So what's all the fuss? Cryptocurrency is basically a decentralized cryptographic currency. If you're not familiar with those terms, you probably think decentral what? What is all this stuff? So cryptocurrencies built upon three major pillars. There are some minor pillars, but the three major ones are that there's no central authority, meaning that no one government or country or financial institution can control the currency. It's completely decentralized. So to give you an example why that's important, imagine like during a depression or a recession where there's like a run on banks, then the banks all of a sudden decide to just cut you off from your money. You can't take any more out of the ATMs. That can happen under central authority. Or governments can devalue their currency in order to try to increase exports economically. Governments do those kind of things, inflation, deflation. With cryptocurrency, none of this stuff can happen. These shenanigans can't happen because no central authority can manipulate the currency that way. So that's a beautiful thing. There's full transparency with all the transactions going on through the crypto community. Again, like take banks, for example, if I wanted to call them up and ask them, hey, there's something kind of weird going on with a transaction in my account. There's two things going on here. I have to trust that the bank is going to tell it to me straight of what's going on. And I also have to trust that their servers and all their data is true, that it hasn't been hacked, that it's completely secure. Now we know that hacks happen. They don't happen as often with the banking industry, but they do happen. And tellers and people who work at banks do make mistakes. Human error comes into play. And sometimes they may not tell you the whole story. So with cryptocurrencies, the transactions on the blockchain are fully transparent to the public. And that's a beautiful thing too. And third, if not most important, is that crypto as a currency is available to everybody. It's a secure, global, accessible financial system. This is really important in places where people don't have easy access to banks, for example. Even here in America, we're a rich nation, but even here, there are some people who don't have easy access to banks. For instance, if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you almost have zero balance in your bank account every month, but the bank requires a minimum balance. So there's like a fee that they deduct out of your account. All of a sudden you're looking at negative balances every month, which can incur penalties. And these things can kind of balloon out of control. So people won't open a bank account because of that. Or if like in another country, let's say you're a refugee and the government will recognize you as a citizen, so you're not allowed to get identification, and without identification, you can't open a bank account. Therefore, you cannot participate in the financial system. You're just in this weird catch-22. You don't have these kind of blockages with cryptocurrency. Everybody and anyone has access, and that is also another beautiful thing. So because of these pillars, it's a decentralized system. And what that is just saying that it's a distributed system without one single authority. So kind of imagine, like again, with a banking example, like with my bank Chase, which I use for other purposes, all the data resides on their servers, their backend servers. It's all kind of one single house. But with cryptocurrencies, the entire transaction ledger is on every single different computer that is participating in the system. And we're talking about thousands upon thousands of computers around the world. No single one computer can dictate what's happening with the crypto system. So it's distributed and it's decentralized. And there's so many benefits around that, and we'll get into that as we go. So that's the decentralized part of it. The cryptographic part of it is the underlying technology that runs cryptocurrency. And you may have heard this in the news, it's called the blockchain. The blockchain was created by a person or a group of persons called Satoshi Nakamoto. To this day, we do not know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, who or whom they are. It might probably remain a mystery till the end of time unless they decide to out themselves. But the mystery is kind of beside the point. It doesn't matter. Satoshi Nakamoto created a white paper on blockchain in 2008. Then in 2009, the very first implementation of blockchain occurred. So it's been around for about 12 years now. Still very, very new technology. So what in the world is blockchain? Blockchain is essentially a chain of encrypted data. The way this works is think of blocks of data that are essentially chained together, and it's called the blockchain. Pretty simple. The way it fundamentally works is, I'll give you an example. Let's say you have the first block that's ever created. Maybe that is just a company that has a project and they're issuing cryptocurrency, so they create the very first block, the Genesis block. Now, what happens is there are these things called hashes. Hashes are basically just a totally long random string of numbers. And let's say the first three of those numbers are applied to this first block, the Genesis block. Now, let's say somebody buys a coin. That transaction is going to be recorded in another block. And that block needs to be attached to the original block so that they're chained together and secure and kept historically forever. In order to chain that block together, you would verify with the original block that first that the hash is correct, the three numbers that it has, let's say 1, 2, 3 in this example. And then the second block that gets added to this chain picks up that 1, 2, 3 hash and then adds 3 additional numbers, say 4, 5, 6 in this example. And then if you want to add a third block, the third block would check the second block and say, does the second block have 1, 2, 3? And then you go to the first block. Is the first block 1, 2, 3? If everything matches, and then the third block gets added to the chain, third block takes on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and adds 3 more numbers, 7, 8, 9. And this just goes on forever and ever until you hit the maximum number of blocks that are given in any particular system. So for example, Bitcoin, which is built on its own blockchain, there are other coins that are built on their own blockchains. For Bitcoin, there's 21 million allowed blocks on their blockchain, which is, they estimate they'll run out of blocks somewhere in 2040, the year 2040. So we have a long ways to go before we run out of blocks. So that's the easy answer to how blockchain works, but there's a little bit more to it. You don't just add blocks, because if you do it just based on hash numbers, it can still be hacked. You can falsify hash numbers and then start creating these branches that look like the real blockchain but aren't, and then you start abusing the system. So what happens is that there's an additional step called proof of work. Proof of work, imagine every time you want to create a block or attach a block to the blockchain, there is a mathematical equation, a very complex equation that has to be solved in order to allow that block to be added. And what happens is, to solve that equation, computers around the world, which are called miners, they compete to solve this equation. The reason why they compete is because they are incentivized. The first computer to correctly solve the equation gets awarded a certain number of coin from that block, along with transfer fees and whatnot. So the community is incentivized to compete against each other because everybody wants to get their own coins. They're not incentivized to collaborate, which would spell disaster for the blockchain, because if everybody collaborated, they could try to hack the system through what is called a 51% attack. I'm not going to get into that, but it would be disastrous for the system if there was collaboration going on. So there's a lot of game theory used to make sure that it's a competitive environment, that people are competing against each other to mine these blocks and get the reward from them. So how does proof of work work? So all the computers are competing to solve this mathematical equation. The first one that solves it gets a proof of work. And what happens is the rest of the computers see that the equation was solved, and then they look at the proof of work, and there has to be a consensus with all the other computers all the other miners that say, okay, yeah, you did this correctly. The proof of work is correct. Once that consensus is agreed upon, the miner gets the reward and the block is added to the blockchain, and it just keeps going on and on like this ad nauseum. So every time somebody buys, sells, trades, exchanges coin, this is the process that is happening through proof of work. All right. Now, there are other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum. These are the two major ones, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Bitcoin is the original one. It was built on the original blockchain. Ethereum is built on its own blockchain. And like I said, Bitcoin works on proof of work. There are advantages to proof of work and there are disadvantages to proof of work. The advantages are that proof of work is highly secure, highly immutable, meaning it cannot be changed, almost impossible to hack. Ethereum is similar, but it works on something called proof of stake. I'll get into proof of stake in a second, but there is a huge disadvantage to proof of work, being that there's a massive energy cost. In the early days, when there wasn't a lot on the block, the computational power of a computer to try to solve the equation didn't require too much energy. But as the block has grown, the equation gets complex, more and more complex with every block that is added. And it takes more computational power to solve these equations, which creates a ton of energy use around the world. It's estimated that the blockchain right now under proof of work, the annual energy use is equivalent to about Argentina. And Argentina is a pretty big country, so you can imagine how much energy is being used on an annual basis. Ethereum's proof of stake uses way less energy. It's about 7 times less, 6 to 7 times less. So proof of stake is an alternative to proof of work, and that's why you're seeing Ethereum becoming more and more popular. And getting back to, so let's talk about proof of stake for a little bit. Why is it different from proof of work? Proof of stake is based on not computational power of one computer. So it's not just all these single computers competing with each other to solve the equation. It's based on how much coin I own in the entire pool of coins. So let's say, just hypothetically, there's 1,000 coin. There's like millions of coins, but let's just say 1,000 to keep this example easy. And let's say I own 100 coin. That means I have 10% chance of solving this equation. And it's not necessarily built on the computational power of my computer. It's built on my ability to solve it and also my stake in the pool. Now, if somebody had 200 coin, they have a better chance of getting an opportunity to solve this equation. They have 20%. So that's at an individual basis, I could compete with other individual stakeholders if we own a lot of coin. But let's say I only own 1 coin out of 1,000. You know, my chances of getting a reward from completing the equation or adding the block is almost minuscule. It's like, 0.1%. So I could join a pool of to stake, meaning, like, let's say somebody has 10 coins, somebody has 50, somebody has 60, and I have 1. All of a sudden we have, 121 coins together. And together we can compete against all the other percentage holders. So proof of stake is an interesting, another interesting way to basically secure the blockchain and verify the blockchain without as much energy consumption as these massive computer rigs that are trying to do things on proof of work. So if we look at it from an energy consumption standpoint, proof of work is not very good. It sucks. Bad for the environment, generates a lot of heat, uses a lot of energy. Ethereum is better, but in the grand scheme of things, Ethereum still uses about as much energy as, let's say, Ecuador. And that's still like, a full-size country of energy consumption. So there's other proofs, like proof of time and space. There's proof of authority. I'm not going to get into all these things, but there's all these different proof methods that are being tested to try to bring down this energy cost and make transactions more efficient and whatnot. But that still doesn't tell you whether or not Bitcoin is better than Ethereum. Ethereum has something called smart contracts. Bitcoin's blockchain does not have smart contracts. So what are contracts? Well, it would be good to start off with what's a basic contract. So like in the world, when we draft up a contract, the parties agree on something And oftentimes there's a third party that makes sure all the conditions are met, and then the result of the contract is executed. So for like example, let's talk about the real estate transactions, for example. In California, there are escrow companies and title companies that serve as third parties to the real estate deals. The seller and the buyer agree on a contract. Everything goes through this third party, this escrow service, and these title insurance companies, or even mortgage lenders and all these kind of things. Then once all the conditions are satisfied, the key is transferred to the new owner and the money is transferred to the seller. Now that can be cumbersome, and there's also room for a lot of human error. We kind of talked about human error and all that kind of stuff earlier with the central authority problem. Thankfully human error doesn't really occur too much in these older systems like real estate transactions. They happen so much that people know how to do them really well, but the errors do happen. In fact, I used to work in the real estate industry, so I've seen the errors happen. I've seen fraud happen. So it's not a perfect system. Smart contracts, on the other hand, they get rid of the third party. Basically, smart contracts are programmed contracts to execute perfectly when the conditions are all followed. And it's highly trustworthy. You don't have to worry about the contract being hacked because the blockchain itself is highly secure. You can't change the contract. If you don't suddenly don't like the terms, you can't hack it and change it. So let's say with a real estate contract, once you know that you've programmed, like all the inspections have been done, the loan is in place, you have all these conditions in place, the contract can then execute and say, look, it's time to turn the keys over. Here's the deed, the digital deed, the money gets transferred to the seller's account, done. You don't have to go through all these intermediaries. Now, that hasn't happened yet in the real world. There's still some barriers to implementing smart contracts at scale. A lot of it has to do with the cumbersomeness of blockchain because it's not fast. Like all those equations that have to be solved take time. And the reason why they take time is actually part of the security measure. If those equations were easily solvable, then hacks could happen more easier. But because they take time to solve and energy to solve, is really to try to hack the blockchain, there's zero incentive to try to even do it. That's why it takes time. But that time also works as a disadvantage in the real world where things need to kind of happen faster. So for example, a Visa card, they process, I think, something like 50 million transactions a day or something like that. I could be wrong in that number, but it's in the high millions. Blockchain transactions, crypto transactions don't even come close to credit card transaction volume yet. So that's something that does need to be solved. So to kind of give you a little bit more in-depth understanding of smart contracts, it's all about trust. And why do I have a picture of a Lego vending machine? Well, because first of all, I'm a huge Lego geek, and I had no idea Lego vending machines existed until today, which blew my mind, and that's awesome. But the vending machine also serves as a really good example of a basic contract. You're probably wondering, what are you talking about? So a vending machine is generally it's a trusted thing, right? You feed money into it, or you slide a credit card, and you expect the machine to just spit out the item that you bought. Now, there are problems with vending machines. Sometimes things get stuck. It could eat your money. What if the credit card machine's broken? Or maybe the machine is just trash. Somebody just trashed it, and you're never going to get the item. No matter how much you shake it, it's just not coming out. So there are problems. But generally, it's a trusted mechanism for a contractual transaction. The contract being, I give you money, you give me my thing. Now, I want you to imagine a hypothetical fantasy vending machine where, let's say, it says, if you put in $1,000, I'll give you $5,000 back. All right, first of all, that's crazy. Who would do that? Who would create a vending machine that does that? But it would immediately make you question all sorts of stuff like, is this true? How can I trust this crazy idea of somebody willing to give me $5,000 if I give them $1,000? So, like, that's a lot of money to put at stake to trust this machine to do what this thing proposes that it's going to do, right? I have no way of verifying that it'll do what it'll do. There's no service person around here to verify that, if the machine breaks, I can get my reward. So as you scale, when you put more at stake in a transaction, you have to have a lot of trust in this contract and how those contracts are being executed. And that's why smart contracts as a technology are super important. They can basically make it 100% trustworthy. You can go to a vending machine that says, if you put in $1,000, I'll give you $5,000. And go, okay, I understand how smart contracts work, so I can 100% trust this is going to happen, even though it is preposterous. I just know it's going to happen. Here's my $1,000. Give me my $5,000. In a fantasy world, that might happen, but it's obviously not going to happen in the real world. But smart contracts essentially create high amounts of trust around any complexity of a contract, a digital contract that can be executed. So that's smart contracts in a nutshell. And again, smart contracts run on Ethereum or Ethereum's blockchain. Smart contracts do not run on Bitcoin's blockchain, so which is why you're seeing Ethereum gaining in popularity than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still very popular. I think one coin's at about 55,000 right now. Last night it was like 59,000, close to 60,000. But Ethereum has recently jumped from around 2,000 to 4,000 just in a few days. So Ethereum is gaining steam and is projected to be more valuable than Bitcoin in the future because of its smart contract technology. So you might be wondering, with all these fluctuations of cryptocurrency, like I mentioned, Bitcoin is like at 55 or 57,000 right now. Ethereum's on 4,000. There are hundreds of other coins that are fluctuating constantly in value. So why hasn't crypto been used for buying goods in the real world? A lot of it is because of this crazy value fluctuation. But does the constant fluctuation of cryptocurrency values affect the value of goods bought or sold with crypto? You might have seen like online or like in tweets or whatever, people saying, oh my God, 10 years ago, I bought a shirt with one cryptocurrency, with one Bitcoin that was worth, and Bitcoin was worth $10. And so my shirt was worth $10 and now Bitcoin's worth, $55,000. So my shirt must be also worth $55,000. That's not how that works. So I just want to talk about this real quick to dispel that myth. I'm going to give you a really simple example. Imagine, just hypothetically, one Bitcoin equals $1. Let's just say, for simplicity's sake, that's what that is right now. And let's say you're at the grocery store and you see a candy bar, also for $1. That candy bar, you can be bought with one Bitcoin because it's all equal to $1, and it's an even exchange. So now let's say Bitcoin goes up, one Bitcoin is worth $2. Does that mean the candy bars are also worth $2? No, the candy bar is still worth $1 because it's based on a physical economic market. And basically you would be able to buy that candy bar for half of Bitcoin. Because if one Bitcoin is equal to $2, half of Bitcoin is equal to 1. The candy bar is equal to 1, so you get half a Bitcoin to buy the candy bar. The candy bar isn't suddenly worth $2. And let's say I sold you the candy bar. I have your one Bitcoin. At the time, one Bitcoin's worth 1. So as a seller of the candy bar, once I get your coin, I want the value of that coin to go up. So if I held onto that coin for many years and now it's like worth $55,000, suddenly that one coin that you bought my candy bar with so many years ago, now I have $55,000 because of the value of the coin, not because of the value of the candy bar. So, and the person who bought the candy bar couldn't hold on to that candy bar and in a few years sell it for $55,000. It's still worth maybe a little bit more than $1 because of inflation or whatever. So maybe it's worth $1.50 or something. It's probably worth nothing because food is disgusting if you eat it like 10 years later. But I think you know what I'm trying to say here. So to dispel the myth, just because you buy something for Bitcoin at one value and then the value goes up in the coin, the physical good does not go up in physical value. The physical good is still tied to the real life market value in the economy. So based on some of the information I've given you, and the craze around cryptocurrencies, should you or shouldn't you get involved? This is a good question. I personally love the technology. There is a lot of speculative stuff going on with the valuation of crypto. There's a lot of money to be made. It's kind of like the stock market. You can buy stocks, speculate on the stock, whether or not the stock will go up or down, and make money or lose money. However, you shouldn't look at cryptocurrency just from a speculative perspective when you think of should I or shouldn't I. Like I said, in regions that don't have financial access to banking systems, should you or shouldn't you becomes a very different question. It means if this is the only choice that I have as access to a financial system, then yeah, you should, because cryptocurrencies are democratic. They equalize the access to finances, and they're not, like identification dependent. You can be anonymous. You don't have to go through central agencies, central authorities. So that's a very different question depending on your situation. In rich countries like America or other parts of the world, the should or shouldn't I is more based on, should I put my money in to maybe make money or lose money? So it just kind of depends on your perspective and where you are in life. Also, I think should you or shouldn't you is tied to, do you believe in the technology? Cryptocurrency, the blockchain itself as a technology is gaining in strides, gaining in adoption. You're starting to see corporations accept it as payment. You're starting to see governments consider creating their own digital coins. China just made their own digital coin. So governments are getting in on this too. I don't know whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'll leave that for another discussion. But if you believe in the technology, you probably should get into it, because as more adoption happens throughout the industry, the value of cryptocurrencies will just grow and grow and grow. Even though the values fluctuate violently right now, that's on the short term, it's a violent fluctuation. Over the long term, you're probably going to see a steady growth. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, so kind of take all this that I'm saying with a grain of salt, but this is just what I believe, okay? But you should do your own research and probably consult with other people if you really want to treat it as a money-making mechanism. That's something you need to be comfortable with. So if you do decide to get into it, Bitcoin's worth $55,000 or whatever it is right now, and you're not rich, how can you get into it? Well, fractions are your friend. You can buy coins in fractions. So even if you have $100, $10, whatever it is, $1, you can buy a Bitcoin. You can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. And the value of whatever you own will coincide with the value that is currently happening with the coin. So you can buy Bitcoin, you can buy Ethereum. I own different coins like Sand, Cardano. There are hundreds of coins. So you need to do your research and understand the differences between these coins. Every coin is built on a different blockchain technology by different companies. So do your research. I own the ones I own for different reasons, personal reasons. And you can feel free to ask me about those if you want. Oh, real quick, I see an interesting question. Can a government ban cryptocurrencies? They can make it illegal. They can't, it's very, very hard to ban, because in order to ban cryptocurrencies, you would have to essentially shut down the internet. You have to shut down every computer around the world that is part of the cryptocurrency decentralized system. So you can't ban it from that sense. You can't just shut it down. I mean, you can kind of, like in China, you hear they shut down the internet sometimes, but they're just shutting it down within China. It's still happening around the world, so they can't effectively ban it completely, but they can try to cut it off from their citizens. But there are so many ways around it. So you can't really ban it. You can make it illegal. So if you catch somebody taking part in it, you can send them to jail. Does that work in favor of the government? I don't know. Back many, many hundreds of years ago, they tried to make gold illegal because it was challenging the monetary system. That failed because gold wasn't going anywhere, and people had invested so much that they could, so they made it legal again. I feel like that's pretty much going to be the same thing with cryptocurrency. Some places are going to try to make it illegal, try to ban it, but you're just going to realize this is a fight they can't win. So just kind of want to answer that question real quick because that question popped out to me. And I'll answer the other questions later. So if you buy crypto, how do you store it? Well, you can get a crypto wallet, or you can go through an exchange. So there are things called custodial wallets and non-custodial wallets. If you buy your cryptocurrency through an exchange, exchanges are like You might have heard of Coinbase or Gemini or Binance. These are the three major ones. There's a bunch of minor ones, but these are the three major ones and they're the most secure ones. When you buy through an exchange, a private key is created for you, a digital private key, okay? And that private key basically proves that you own the coin, and that private key is held with the exchange. The exchange is a custodian of your private key. So the exchange is essentially a custodial wallet. Now there are downsides to that, meaning that, you know, exchanges do get hacked occasionally. You know, we've heard of this happening in the news. And you don't have control over your private key. It doesn't reside with you. It resides on the exchange. So if the exchange goes down, you're kind of, you know, just shit out of luck, excuse the language, but that is the case. Now, non-custodial wallets are not held by the exchange. You take the private key, or you take like a software app or a hardware like USB wallet, and you move the money that is being held at the exchange, the crypto being held there, and you move it to a wallet like on your phone or onto a USB key. And these are called non-custodial wallets because the exchange is not the custodian of your private key. And in non-custodial wallets, you are the owner of your private key. You are in control of it. So it gives you more, better security around the private key. As mentioned, hot wallets, there are hot wallets and cold wallets. So non-custodial wallets fall into these two categories. Hot wallets are basically software-based wallets, like on the web or on mobile apps. They give you high access to the funds. You can transfer at will with exchanges or between wallets very quickly, just, you know, on your phone. It's always connected to the internet, but they are vulnerable to phishing and hacking. So if you are phished, part of like a phishing scam, and you give away your private key, you just gave away all your money. It's just kind of like a password to your bank account. You don't ever want to give away that password. So if anybody ever asks you for your private key, it doesn't matter who they are, do not give it to them, or else you are just kissing your crypto goodbye. And phones can be hacked, right? Like to access my wallet on my phone, for example, I set it up to accept either password or my Face ID or Touch ID. But let's say somebody circumvents that on my phone. Now all of a sudden they have access to my wallet on my phone without needing to know my private key. It's very rare, but it can happen. Now there are cold wallets. So it means you're transferring all the crypto you hold in the exchange to, let's say, like a USB dongle. There are companies that make these. Ledger and Trezor are the main two companies that make cold wallets. They're extremely secure because they're physical hardware. They're not connected to the internet all the time. So you can't, hackers can't just access it online. They'd have to literally have access to your physical USB dongle. But they have less access to the funds. If you want to transfer them, you have to reconnect the USB, plug it into your computer, or connect your Bluetooth to a software app, mobile app, and then transfer the funds that way. So it's not as fast as hot wallets. And it's not connected to the internet all the time, which is a good security measure. So cold wallets are more secure than hot wallets. Hot wallets are more secure than exchanges. So that's a good way to think of how to keep your cryptocurrencies. Now, I mentioned private keys. Well, let me talk about private keys last. When you're considering a wallet, you're going to want to consider what coins those wallets support. Not every wallet supports every single coin. There are hundreds of coins. So for example, with my stuff, just as an example, Cardano and Sand, the two different coins, I have to own two different wallets to hold those coins because one wallet supports Sand, it doesn't support ADA, which is Cardano. My other one supports ADA and it doesn't support Sand. That's kind of ridiculous, but it's just kind of the name of the game. So when you're choosing wallets, it kind of depends on what coin you want to buy, and that'll help you base your decision on what wallet to get. If you're just focusing on Bitcoin or Ethereum, every single wallet supports that, so you don't need to think too hard about it. But when you start going into alternative coins like Cardano or Dogecoin or Stellar Lumens or Neo or something like that, then you just have to start thinking about, does your wallet support the coin? Can I actually hold it there? Even the cold wallets, Ledger and Trezor, they support different coins. They have a lot of intersection with what they support, but they also support things that are just native to their wallets. So it's not a unified system. It's kind of a pain sometimes, but wallets are secure, and you should definitely hold your crypto in either a hot or cold wallet. It's highly recommended. So private keys, as mentioned, keep them secret, keep them safe, as Gandalf says. Do not ever share your private key. You're literally giving away your money if you do that, okay? It doesn't matter what excuse anybody gives you. I don't care what anybody says to me. I will never give it away, okay? Unless, I put it like in my will or something and I trust the executor. Even then, I'll probably do that right before I die. And if you lose your private key, guess what? Your coin is lost forever. Hackers won't be able to get into your wallet, even if you lost your key. Like if I'm a hacker and I'm going to try to hack your wallet, the amount of time it is predicted to try to hack a crypto wallet is approximately 650 million years based on current modern computing power. So you can see that it's impossible to hack a crypto wallet unless you start having the advent of quantum computers and whatnot. But that's a near future technology, so we don't have to worry about it right now. But if you lose your private key, guess what? You lose your crypto forever, and that cryptocurrency is taken out of the pool, overall pool. So to give you an example of how devastating this can be, there's this story where a guy held his private key on a hard drive. Back in the day, Bitcoin was worth maybe $1, $2, $5 or something like that. He was just like, this is never gonna be worth anything. So he threw his hard drive away, got a new hard drive. Years later, suddenly Bitcoin hit $10,000 and he had millions of dollars of worth of crypto saved to that private key on his hard drive. Now that hard drive is sitting in a landfill somewhere and he's out tens of millions of dollars right now. In fact, he's so desperate that he started paying people to help him look for this hard drive in the landfill. Good luck to him. It's probably worth it if you have tens of millions of dollars at stake, but he's probably never going to find that hard drive. So you need to keep your private key safe. I keep mine locked up in a safe, which I'm not going to disclose where it is, but typically private keys are a string of 12 to 24 words that you have to input into correct order. And it's very, very hard to hack. The downside to the private key is because you do have to keep it somewhere secure, and it is something that's really, really hard to remember. People already have a hard time remembering simple passwords. To try to remember a string of 12 words in the correct order or 24 words in the correct order, it's very hard to do. So that's one of the barriers to adopting cryptocurrency or for people to come into the cryptocurrency ecosystem. So that's also something to consider when you asking yourself, should I, shouldn't I? Can I deal with the private key issue? I personally think it's worth it. It is a big barrier, but it's a secure barrier. So that's why it's worth it to deal with it. But again, I'm going to reiterate, if you do get into it, do not lose your keys, okay? So I want to talk about some other stuff that's in the news. You're hearing a lot about NFTs. They're all the craze right now. NFTs stand for non-fungible tokens. What is a non-fungible token? Again, like random words strung together. Non-fungible simply means that it's unique. It's irreplaceable. And an NFT, right now, the craze all around NFTs tied to artwork. NFTs represent the digital rights tied to artwork. So you're familiar with Nyan Cat. It's been around for decades. But somebody recently sold, the original creator of Nyan Cat recently sold the digital rights to Nyan Cat for $580,000. Not the art, the rights behind the art. So whoever owns the NFT, whoever this person is, simply has bragging rights to say, look, I own the rights to the Nyan Cat. It's kind of silly because Nyan Cat as an art has been shared millions of times over the internet. So it's not like this person can tell everybody to take the art down. And he doesn't actually own the art itself. He just owns the digital rights to it. So that's what an NFT is. Some people think that when they buy an NFT, they're buying the art. Just want to be clear, you're not buying the art. You're buying the digital rights to the art. Anything that can be digitized can be turned into, the digital rights can be turned into an NFT. So music can exist in the digital realm. You can have digital rights to that. There are trading cards, digital trading cards like Top Shot, NBA cards, even tweets. Jack Dorsey recently sold his first tweet that he ever made for, I think, around $3 million for digital rights, some absurd number. And other NFT examples are like the Sandbox. I own Sandcoin, which is based on the Sandbox game. Within the game, people are selling digital rights to the digital land that they're creating within the game, because there's only so much land you can buy in the game. It's got its own real estate ecosystem. It's kind of neat just to kind of think of how the NFT ecosystem is growing. I kind of want to talk about real quick about where the art is held. If you own an NFT, like I said, you don't own the art. So let's say all of the Nyan cats in the world were suddenly taken down from the internet. Do I have access to the art anymore, even though I own the NFT? No, because the art isn't hosted online anymore. It's just poof, gone. Now, hopefully I had downloaded a copy of Nyan Cat for myself, kept it on my computer, on my phone. Otherwise, if I didn't, if it's not hosted online somewhere, I have zero access to the art. So that's something to just keep in mind when you think about NFTs. Again, to reiterate, it's the digital rights, not the actual art. What's great about NFTs is that it's created an entire economic ecosystem for artists to make money in different ways, and to open a lot of doors for independent artists to make money. Not all of them are selling things for like $100,000 or whatever. I think there was a GIF recently where an animation sold for $69 million. That's absurd. So there's a lot of craze in the collector industry right now around NFTs, but generally you can sell things for like $5-10, you know, whatever, if you're an artist. I'm creating my own NFT. It's like a digital sticker. It's just something fun I'm doing. NFTs are based on smart contracts, which are based on Ethereum right now. So NFTs are kind of like a jumping off point to implementing smart contracts at scale. So think of like NFTs for real estate transactions later on. They can be very important. So there are other uses besides art, but right now the craze is all about collecting art. So what does the future hodl for cryptocurrency and blockchain technology? You know, the sky's the limit. We're just starting to find out. Corporations are just starting to accept payment in crypto. We're starting to see the energy costs come down a little bit. So we're going to be able to start seeing implementations of blockchain. I'm very excited for people who are in more desperate states who need access to financial systems or even digital passports to create highly secure and trusted identities that aren't controlled by governments. That could exist on the blockchain. That's super important. But what does the future hodl? Who knows? It's up to everybody's imagination. But I'm very optimistic about the technology, and I think you should be too.